All right, welcome to the Coaching Collective podcast, and today we are going to wrap up the IFBB VIC State Show, which was on the 13th of April. So for us, we had 5 competitors in the show. So we had 4 boys, 1 girl. So we had Marco in men's physique and classic physique. We had Jude in classic physique and bodybuilding. We had Aaron and Julian in men's physique. And we also had Amy in bikini. So if you may be aware, 4 of them were first timers. 3 of them were juniors. The only repeat competitor was Aaron. So it was a big day for us. Obviously, stress was high. It was always a little bit more difficult peaking for the IFBB shows, solely because we have more variables to play with, as you can imagine by reading between the lines, as well as the fact that the standard is that little bit higher. So it's not uncommon for natural competitors to sometimes cruise them into shows. So we'll just run them at a baseline, give them a little bit more carbs to make sure that they can hold the look that they have while getting a degree of fullness and actually being able to achieve a pump. But this, when it comes to IFBB, is actually something I haven't run. But I got a few lessons that I took away from the show. Well, one of the first ones is it's not really a lesson. It's things that you sort of acknowledge, but then they sort of just become reaffirmed. Typically, a lot of the guys, when they compete, guys specifically, when they compete in these shows, they get worried about the size gap, okay, between them and the best. The thing is, you're not looking at like a physical size gap, like as in, like, are you physically bigger than the person? It's usually density that we are missing out on as beginners. And that density in the tissue, whether that be through the chest, the back, whatever, the legs, you can see that on stage. You can see that, like, for example, Jude was probably, especially looking at his skin folds, just as lean as anyone up there. The reality is he doesn't have the tissue that some of the other guys have. And while he may be just as lean, he just isn't able to present a physique which is as hard, as grainy as some of the others, for example, which is obviously a time thing. And it's nothing against him, because he did a fucking awesome job and he looked great. But the thing is, just to really match it with the big boys, you do need that density. And I think that's where a lot of people miss out. Because if you really got Julian up on stage, which I don't think there's any photos of him here, he looked like he held his own in the size department. In fairness, Julian probably could have been a little bit leaner. So I guess I'll start by summarizing how they sort of went in regards to everything. So obviously we had Marco in the first in the juniors men's physique, and we had Amy in the third in the bikini juniors. But then outside of that, the placings were just a little bit more spread out. Package wise, we'll start with Julian. So Julian, we probably missed the mark a little bit in regards to the conditioning aspect, which was just a little bit of a tail end kind of issue we had with the prep. We changed a few variables, which in 99 and 100 people that I've dealt with, we'll say 9 in 10, those variables would sharpen and improve the physique, but in him it seemed to sort of make much of a muchness. So if I had to go back in time, what we were sort of, how we had set up at around that 8 to 9 week out mark, probably wouldn't have changed a thing besides just honing in on the nutrition and obviously the training variables and the recovery metrics. But nonetheless, he obviously was really happy with his package, and I was too. But we do recognize that future preps would probably be closer to that 16 week mark rather than the 24, which we ran. 24 being like a safety net is why we ran that, but we did notice a lot of like just diet fatigue or process driven fatigue towards the end of the comp prep for him. Jude ran a 24-week prep as well. In regards to him, probably not much we really could have done better in hindsight. It's probably just what we learned of his body throughout the course of the prep, we would know for next time. That was probably more around the fact that, for example, he depletes very quickly. He requires a lot of carbs to fill up, and just considering his size and just the dealings I'd had with him prior, it was hard for me to comprehend this, because I sort of thought, well, there's no way a guy of his size would require like 5 times 1,000 carbs per day. But he did in fact require 5 times 1,000 carbs per day. On the same note, I remember it was on 2,400 calories, and I thought, well, an 84 kilogram male at 2,500, he shouldn't be as depleted as he's claiming, but like it seems like he is, but that's where everyone's different. With Aaron, for example, that was probably this most linear process. What I mean by the most linear is he progressed from day 1 to the final day, all the way through without really any signs of stalling. Every variable we inputted, he would respond to, which was quite nice, and it did result in what I thought was a really polished package. I thought that he probably couldn't have looked better than what he did. We can probably get these photos up, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I genuinely think Aaron probably couldn't have looked better than what he did. Besides adding a little bit of tissue to the frame, which is obviously not a matter of prep, it's a matter of off-season. But yeah, I thought that was the best look he could have had. like I said, mentioned Julian already. Mentioned Jude already, who I will add, Jude absolutely held his own up there. And then finally we had Marco. So that's probably not a good representation of what Marco looked like. I feel like we probably missed the midsection a little bit just with the peak, and that was just a little bit of manipulation in sodium and water, which I wasn't completely happy with myself about, because I wasn't happy that I sort of went down that route. But nonetheless, you can see the back shot came in like perfectly. We did always have a little bit of an issue with just fluid around the back and fluid around the lower midsection, as well as the legs. But the funny thing was with Marco, actually, we couldn't get his legs in for weeks. And I had a friend, JP Hoon, if you know him, I had a friend say, some of these guys just, because I told him what he does for work, he's a tradie, some of these guys just really tie in towards the end when you sort of get them off their feet, mitigate fatigue, etc. And you might see it just pop up in like that last week. And I remember thinking, oh, good luck. And then literally he took the last 2 weeks off work. And I think within 3-4 days, the legs went from just like slabs of meat to the point where I'm like, there's no way that you can compete in classic physique to like actually being detailed. So obviously Marco looked fantastic. I personally feel a little bit accountable just for washing that out, but it does come down to just not having probably the density on the abs that we need, which is obviously something that will be worked on in the off season. And then obviously Amy, anyone that knows Amy as well, I can probably just scroll down my page and show you a photo of her when I met her, just here. So for her to present that package and actually place is quite fucking awesome. So obviously really, really happy with all my guys. Amy will be taking place in Nationals. And then we have Sherwin in IFBB in Queensland this week, which is good fun. So we should be good to go. But the purpose of this podcast today, or this presentation, is just to go over the winners and the placings of the results, how everyone went. So I'm going to start with men's physique. I'll just do it in linear order. I was there for the entire show from start to finish. I probably have a little bit less to say about figure and wellness, just because they wore smaller categories. In being smaller, I probably did take a little bit less interest, but that is okay. Plus, the winners were a little bit more clear-cut. So if we jump into the true novice here, I definitely felt like the winner was deserving in the true novice, and he was ecstatic with the win. I don't even want to try to say his name. Lakruwan, Bandara Medivita Wikra. Yeah, okay. One of the more impressive things here is Zaylan Valu here. He competed against James in ICN last week. He is actually a natural athlete. Got up there, held his own. If I had to give a little bit of feedback to him, it would probably be just to refine the posing a little bit, because there was definitely instances where the posing was like off comparative to everyone else in the cohort. And I just think this is probably just more of an experience thing, because I believe he's a young dude. I'm not 100% sure. But nonetheless, he's a first-timer, and he was a first-time competitor. The first time he actually has ever competed was last weekend. But like with the front shot, he'd be front on, which I really didn't think complimented him. Definitely has some imbalances around the chest and stuff, because incredibly developed chest. Nice wide back though, but I do think we could probably hit something he could work on depending on what his goals are in this. But first place, definitely deserving here. Not much feedback to really give outside of probably just closing up on that size gap just to sort of present that density to run with the big boys. But in fairness, he probably went toe-to-toe with the big boys anyway, so there's not really a hell of a lot to say. Unfortunately, with Corey Batson here, I didn't really take a good look at him throughout. I think it's because my eyes were drawn to Zaylan, mostly because I didn't know that he was natural. I didn't know that he competed last weekend, so I was already familiar with him. And Lakruwan, the winner, because he was quite a clear-cut winner from the start, especially from the back shot. I will say that in men's physique, they didn't really put too much weight into the back shot, which was super interesting. I found this disappointing because Marco's back shot was his saving grace. And, well, not saving grace, so that makes it sound like he wasn't up to speed, but his back shot was, like, great. But nonetheless, that was very fairly judged. There was no real big boys in the men's physique either, so we couldn't really tell how they were judging it. There was one who didn't place top 3 as expected, and that's how it should be. But one of the things that I did tell my boys and girl and the others is what I noticed with this show, it was a smaller show. There was very few average competitors. So a lot of the time at these shows, we see a lot of average competitors, okay? And we see a lot of below average competitors. And then obviously then we have our top end. What I found with this show is, let's just say I'm going to go into the middle of my screen here. That's your average competitors in the middle there, okay? A lot of the competitors were here. So like between that average and top end, Very few on that top end. The top end guys, as you'll see, were very clear, and very few below here. Okay, there was probably only throughout the whole day, I reckon there was only one person where I really said that, why is that guy up there? Which is crazy, because some of these shows, I remember going to Queensland last season for the IFBB show, and I remember saying to myself, there was at least 6-7 people just in Trey's first division where I was just like, who told them to get up there? Which, it's a good thing, but obviously, like, seeing that for some of the guys in that middle makes them feel like super confident. Take of that what you will. So we go into the novice, which was very similar again. So I don't think I really need to comment too much there. Again, didn't pay too much attention to this dude, unfortunately. So I'm not going to say much. We jump into the overall. I don't think it came as any surprise that Wayne won the overall. Lacquer won placing third, which he should be super happy with himself there. I'd say the only gap that we have there is just a little bit of a size gap, which, based on the fact that he's a first timer, he could probably close that with like a 12-month sort of, if he has 12 months off, I genuinely feel like he'll probably close that gap and actually go toe to toe with Wayne and Fabian is his name. So obviously between Wayne and Fabian, different posing styles, different presentation. Wayne was very relaxed in his presentation, where Fabian looked very, how do I put it? It's not tense, but just a little bit more there. I will say I probably preferred Fabian's stage presence, but Wayne is obviously a weathered competitor. Most people who are in this space would know who he is, and obviously going for the pro card this year. Based on yesterday, I do think he deserved the win. I think probably not so much from the front shot. I don't think front shot, I'd say front shot, Fabian could have even edged him out. But I do think definitely from the back shot, it was very difficult to not give it to Wayne, because Wayne was quite clearly ahead in that department. But with stage presence and things like that, I will openly say it was pretty much just them two from the second they walked out. It was 1 and 2, and it was like, who's going to win that? And then after that, it was sort of like, well, I will say Lacquer One probably was the third runner. Like, in fairness, as soon as these guys walked out, I sort of knew the way that things were going to go. It wasn't like who's going to be in that top 2 or 3. So I believe that does make sense. Okay, and obviously you're overall there. Men's physique's a fantastic category. To be honest with you, there wasn't like any really super intensive or heavy competition for this show. I'm very interested to see how Queensland went this week. I have not watched the New South Wales show yet for the males, unfortunately, just because they didn't have that posted up, and I obviously had another show to attend last week. I wouldn't fly up anyway just for the one show. I didn't have any clients in it, but you get the gist. So we'll go into Classic Physique Juniors. All right, so we had Jamie, who's coached by Kevin. He was a clear winner. And obviously, he's 22, I think, maybe not even 22. He's a clear future pro card contender. There is no doubt about that in probably anyone's mind. Just the symmetry, the shape, everything about him is just absolutely flawless. And he was inside out, absolutely inside out. Probably the leanest competitor in Classic Physique on the day. He was a clear winner for me. There was nothing to really critique there in regards to how this was placed. The one thing that I didn't really like was they did seem to weight density and development above some of the other boys who had a little bit more of that classic kind of look. So I did notice that like third place could have easily been edged out by fourth or fifth. And if you look at this, you can clearly see the conditioning difference between third and first and second. It's quite night and day. Not to take anything away from the third place Antonio, he looked great on the day. But I do think with Classic, they probably are best going down the route of trying to maintain that classic shape. But again, who am I to say that? I don't know. But first and second were definitely well deserved. It was definitely a competitive juniors lineup. None of the boys in the whole 6 were off the mark. You often see guys in juniors look quite bad, and that did not happen. But I don't think anyone would disagree with me in saying that Jamie was literally walked out and it was his. So that's fine. And then we had the Masters as well. Triv is coached by Matty Vaker. Conan Trost, I'm not 100% sure, but this was another clear win. To think that this guy's over 40 is ridiculous. He was inside out. He looked fantastic. Presented himself elegantly. Nothing to really critique there. Now, the true novice. So, the true novice classic physique. Jackson walked out, and it looked like boys amongst men. To think that this guy is a first timer is ridiculous. And obviously, everyone was going to love Jackson's physique. It's very hard to really make comment here. Jackson's lower half was definitely like flawless. Upper half, I do think on that front line, a little bit more washed. I'm not too sure if it was washed or if it's a development issue, but I think for him to go toe-to-toe with like the top end, I think he probably will need to just dial that in, which I think that he will. I'm fairly confident that he's still coached by Matt Jansen as well. But from even the back shot, the glutes were right in. The back looked as nice as it needed to. It's just around that midsection. You can see when he got to open bodybuilding and he was up against Dimmy, you could see that he did miss on that, probably mostly on that front shot. And again, whether that's a peaking issue or just a development issue, the guy's like 24, man. Like he will rectify that. And it's his first show. He clean sweeped it. He won the overall. I don't think he's really expecting much more than that. Yeah, like I really don't. So that was walk away, unfortunately. And again, same thing. Nothing to really comment there. And then Stephen Willem, coached by Kevin again. Obviously, he was a clear winner as well. I think so obviously he was in the overall against Jackson. That was just a significant size differential, significant size differential, because from a conditioning perspective, he was potentially leaner than Jackson. I guess Jackson sort of does give those Chris Bumstead kind of vibes, and I think it's quite hard to look past him, unless someone came up with similar shape and was just able to just dial in a little bit better. I think he's going to be hard to beat. But it's again, I didn't see the classic physique winner last week in the flesh. I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes up in Queensland this week, because we should have a bit of a larger cohort to deal with. But this was quite fair as well. I don't think there's really much to say. As with that, Ryan in third place. It's always nice to see Ryan up there. So yeah, that's cool. Overall winner. All right, we keep moving. Bodybuilding juniors. Little bit surprised by this one again. Again, I don't want anything that I say to be taken away from the guys that win or how they placed or anything like that. But I definitely feel that Jamie was a clear winner here. And I know that he was quite disappointed with the outcome as well. He did start to probably flatten out a little bit towards the end of the day, but he was still light years ahead of second place in my view. So it's an amazing physique, and it's impressive, and he really did suffer for it. So I think that that's fair. But I do think Kai, first place, probably does deserve to shift into second. I'm not the judge. I'm not sure how they judged it. That's just my take on it. And to be fair, between third and sixth, anyone probably could have slotted into that third. It just looks like they've sort of gone for that greater degree of muscularity there, which is how it seems to have gone. Super heavies, everyone knows Harry Vlahos. It's very hard to beat, to sort of not give him first place considering the size differential. Okay, Jackson in first place there, quite straightforward again. And obviously we had George Milner on the left, who looked phenomenal as well, coached by Kyle. I don't think anyone's really arguing this one either. And then I don't think anyone's arguing the light heavyweights, so we keep moving forward. Now, Dimmy in the middle, it was literally, again, one of those situations where he got up there, and I remember thinking, surely someone's going to contend with him, and just no one could contend with him, not even Jackson. Next to each other, yeah, he just clean sweeped this show. And it was like nice to see, because obviously I know the guy who's trained at the gym. I used to coach his partner. Could not have presented a better package. No real flaws in the physique. I do think Dimmy is going to be very hard to beat coming into nationals and going for that pro card. Like, I really do think it's going to be hard to beat. I'm actually interested to see if anyone is of that caliber, because obviously we had Matt O'Reilly last season, who was of that caliber, being an absolute mammoth. Season before we had Mike Halusi, sort of same kind of situation. But I don't know if we have any Matt O'Reillys or Mike Halusi's popping up. let me know, actually, if you think there's anyone that will contend for the open bodybuilding title. With classic physique, now that I just want to take a step back, I think we've got Jay Dashi competing, which I think will be a very good battle. They're different physiques. Dashi's definitely sharper and leaner from memory, depending on how he's pulled himself in this year. But that's going to be a nice battle, okay? Because I think Jackson will have to dial in a little bit more to really contend with Dashi as well. Obviously, from the looks of it, probably having a little bit of a size differential over him, though, which he can use to his advantage. If we go back to men's physique, I think we also have Jackson Pios doing men's physique, which I'm excited to see. The reason I'm excited to see is because the man's talked into existence. You have to admire his work ethic, whatever you do. That'll be a nice contender for the men's physique. I do think that if we compare the New South Wales overall versus the VIC overall, Wayne does win. But if Jackson can win the overall this week, I do think Jackson's going to be hard to beat unless there is a dark horse that I'm unaware of. Likewise with bodybuilding and Dimmy. Okay, obviously this was the next category, and then Dimmy wins the overall as expected. We jump into... Okay. It's hard to really talk about the figure because with figure, I think there was only 3 competitors. Okay, she was a clear walk-away winner. They placed a lot softer of a girl second. I actually feel like that might have been a mistake because the girl that placed third was definitely in second. And I don't even know much about figure, but like it was just obvious as ever. Like, but that is what it is. Wellness as well. Emily, coached by Luke. That was a walk away. I will admit, Maddie Baker's girl, I forget her name. She was super competitive and up to speed, but I just think the balance of presentation, the fact that there was no real flaws in Emily's physique, like I can't see her not going like all the way this season. I'd be super surprised, to be fair. We jump into, well, there we go. We actually have the comparisons. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you'll see what I mean there. Like, I reckon that might have been a mistake, unless I've marked out Charlotte Toteros for just being a little bit too grainy, because she's definitely super fucking grainy. So we got to remember, sometimes when we see these weird places, we do get marked out on technicalities, and that could have been what happened here. We will see that in bikini as well. So we keep moving. Wellness, we have the comparisons as per discussion. Okay. And then we jump into bikini. So that was the bikini juniors. It was a small juniors lineup. Charlie Boswell on the left. You could see she clearly got marked down for the separation in the quads. And just being a little bit too striated. So I believe they actually compared Amy and Charlie continually to, I believe they were trying to slip Charlie into third place. I think they pushed her back into second just because she has a little bit more development, a little bit more shape, which is just the time she's probably been doing this, because I think she's competed a couple of times. But definitely to condition, which edged her out of first place. Which is a good thing because it's within her control to sort of soften that up coming into nationals if she wants to do that a little bit better. But you could see the quad separation in every single step. And I believe there was even a little bit of hamstring in there, which is super impressive, but it's important that the criteria is acknowledged. But the good thing about this is it's not you have to get back in and build some more muscle. You have to get back in and get a little bit leaner. She just has to soften up. And that's pretty easy to do in 3 weeks. So, yeah, that was obviously the gist of that. It was quite clear that Madeline Murtagh was the winner there. So that's cool. We jump into the Bikini Masters. I do believe I missed this category, so I'm not going to comment. But I did catch up with Alexander Barris after the show, and she was a lovely, lovely woman. So just thought I'd give her the credit there. She looked great. So because I am following her and seen all her photos, so that's cool. True Novice category. Kaylin Sheck was the clear winner, okay, was smack on the criteria. Glutes were nice and full, no quad detail, no striations in the delts, great shape, great presentation. I thought it was quite obvious. I believe she dropped an earring about halfway through that, which threw her a little bit, but that's okay. That was quite an obvious win, so she should be quite happy with that. And then again, winning the novice as well. Do I think she deserved the novice? Yes, I do. She was smack on where she needed to be. Okay, we jump into the open class A. So I believe I missed this category, but I did re-watch it and I got some feedback from others regarding it. I think this was, again, fairly judged. The one thing, the bikini was great, but I did notice there was no, like, top-end standouts to a point where we're like, right, this person's turning pro this year. Which is, yeah, a little bit unusual. It was definitely a small lineup, only 2 open class. There was 6 open class for comparison season B last year. So I think that's important to point out. But, yeah, Katie was I believe, the overall winner. It's funny because Taylor won the open class, and I thought there was only one class, so I thought she was the overall winner. And then I told Izzy, because obviously I trained at the same gym as Taylor, and he's like, no, she didn't win. She didn't win the overall. And I was like, oh, okay. But Taylor was quite obviously the winner of this as well, which was fine. I think, as she would be aware, just probably more detail in the lower half will get her where she needs to or aspires to be. And hopefully that can be achieved in the next 3 weeks. I'm assuming it will. And I believe that is the whole show wrap of the situation. So I do think everything was quite fairly judged. There was a few in those third place kind of situations where I was a little bit unsure about things. And there was, but like for the most part, the winner in every single lineup was quite obvious. So I think it was a good day. Smaller show. Hoping Queensland's a little bit larger this week, especially because I'm flying up for it. But, yeah, always good fun. So, hope you enjoyed. Don't hesitate in critiquing me, giving me feedback. Remember, everything's just my fucking opinion. I'm not attacking anyone. I've tried to keep it a little bit straightforward, but hopefully this was constructive. And it'll be nice for you to sort of sift through the winners and get an idea of where you stand. But have a great day. I'll speak to you all soon.